it's good to see everybody on Zoom, and it's good to have everybody here. There are 11 people besides me in the room here, so you know who's here. Did everybody enjoy the movie?
Yes.
Okay. So I heard at the end of the movie somebody say that wasn't a children's movie. Okay. So it was like many cartoons or animated movies, that is, it's on many levels, right? So a child will watch it and they will think parts of it are funny and they will enjoy it and they will get their own thing out of it. But one of the amazing things about this is that it speaks to people across generations. And I don't know if any of you have children or grandchildren in their, ranging from 18 to let's say 27, 28. But in my experience, the kids that are in that age group really feel, many of them really are profoundly impacted by this movie because they're the ones who are looking for their spark and their purpose, right? And so the question is, why did I bring this movie to us for Selichot? Anybody have any guesses?
Well, Selichot, during the high holidays, this is the time of reflection where we think about the past year, perhaps our past life, and reflect on it and think, well, have I done what I wanted to do? Is there more that I could do? Am I fulfilling my destiny, so to speak?
Right. Okay, so Maxine said that, oh, should I have my mask on? Okay. I just want to be able to hear. Okay, so Maxine said that I picked the movie because at Selichot, it's the start of the high holidays. We're supposed to be thinking about our lives. Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? What am I, basically that the short version is, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And that is one of the main reasons. There are a few other reasons. And by the way, this movie, just because I brought the movie doesn't mean I agree with all the theological implications of the movie. I just want to say that at the outset, but it brings up some very good questions. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
I think it also has to do with how what you do affects other people.
Okay.
Beyond how your life affects you, but how what you do affects other people.
Okay, so Pierre said that it's because this movie tells us what we do impacts what other people do. And that's actually one of the other major reasons I brought it. It's one of the major reasons why I enjoy this movie is because this man was obsessed. He had one goal, and that was to have his big moment, right? His big jazz moment. And he thought that that would change his life. And what happens when he has his big moment? It's over. It was completely not what he was expecting. And he ends up realizing that what is the purpose of his life? What is the meaning of his life? This is the whole question of the movie. What is the meaning of his life?
He gets to inspire other people.
The meaning of his life is to live it, and he is the greatest mentor of all because 22 had been around for hundreds of years, right? And nobody was able to get her to move forward. And this man who had felt completely as though his life was a waste if he was just a middle school band teacher doesn't realize that what his purpose is to help others, right? He helped the girl who played the trombone, or 22 did because she was in his brain. He was the only, right? How did he even get the audition to play with Dorothea Williams?
That's what I was going to say, is that we are introduced to his purpose right at the beginning. That drummer says, you gotta come, you are the one, I wouldn't have gotten through middle school if it wasn't for you.
Right. So Maxine says, we learned at the very beginning that he changed that kid's life the kid was playing in the middle school band. And so the thing about the story is that we all have a capacity to change somebody else's life, even when we don't know that we're doing it. And also, even when we think that maybe we got sidetracked and did something that that we weren't expecting. My other favorite moment in the movie is in the barber shop, right? The barbershop scene is probably the most important scene in the entire movie in some ways, because it reveals a couple of things. It reveals to us in real time that what was talked about in the zone, right? That people in the zone have a danger of going and becoming a lost soul. And Joe didn't even realize that in many ways, by obsessing over this one goal, he was really close to being a lost soul. Whereas the barber who had wanted to become a veterinarian, but then life intervened and he had to go on a different path, he completely embraced his new path and became so good of a barber that Joe thought that he was born for the purpose of being a barber, and that's not what his original plan was. And that's really important too, because as we evaluate our lives each year, many of us had ideas about what we thought we were supposed to do. And sometimes our lives zig and zag, and we can embrace, if we are able to embrace the path that our life takes us on, we can become the greatest barber, the greatest salesperson, right? I did one of the life cycle events I did since I was here already was somebody who wanted to be a veterinarian, and instead ended up becoming a salesman and became a fantastic salesman and ran a very successful company because life got in the way, just like the guy in the movie that wanted to be a veterinarian became a barber. So is there anything that you learned from the movie that you'll take forward? Yes.
I think it's very important to be true to your own self, to your own beliefs, your own goals, because I found the barbershop scene good, but also the dialogue between his mother and himself when she was talking to him about musician, you want to be a musician. That was your father's dream. Look where he ended up. He never really progressed or fulfilled, life. And that was Joe's dream. That's why this character, the central character, is so likable, because he's true to himself. And that's a very, very important lesson I took away from the movie.
Okay, so if you couldn't hear on Zoom, Linda was saying that what she took away from it is that you have to be true to yourself, and that's what made Joe likable, is that he was true to himself, and that in his conversation with his mother, he learned about himself and was still true to himself, even when his mother talked about, it's hard to be a musician, but he still wanted to do that. And so I think one of the things that came through for me when I watched that scene is that you have to be true to yourself, but you also have to, sometimes we are so tunnel vision, we don't understand what other people are saying to us, right? And trying to guide us. And he thought that his mother was doubting him, and he was misconstruing what she was saying. And that's also an important thing, that sometimes when we are evaluating our lives and our relationships, we often misconstrue what somebody says and misinterpret their actions. Yes, Sophia.
The other thing that goes along with that is when the barber was telling him about his path in life.
What, man?
It's like, you know, how come you never told me that before? It's like you never asked.
Right. So Sapir said along those same lines is that in the conversation that Joe had in the barbershop, when 22 was occupying Joe's body, and the barber says, "It was so nice to talk to you today about something other than jazz." And, you know, 22 says, "Why didn't you ever tell me about your life before?" And he said, "You never asked." And the truth of the matter is, we're not going to make friends. We're not going to change anybody's life if we don't actually act like we care and want to know about them, right? And so it's very important for us this time of year to think about, how do we interact with the people that we're around? Do we actually show them like we actually are interested in them, or are we only talking about our one obsession, our one little thing? And so it's very important. Yes, Shady.
I also want to know, remember Joe kept wanting to go back to Earth and they kept saying, it's not your time, it's not your time.
Uh-huh.
So I'm kind of thinking that maybe we need to really look at what's around us and look at ourselves and not jump to conclusions, and give maybe God a chance to help guide us to where we want to go.
Very nice.
Or need to go. Or need to go.
Shady said that she thought that part of what she got from the movie and the fact that Joe wanted to go back to Earth, but the Jerrys kept on saying, "It's not your time, it's not your time," is that sometimes we need to give God or the greater forces a chance to guide us, even when we don't want the guiding, perhaps. So does anybody on Zoom have something that they would like to add?
Andy Byrne, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Lana. One of the questions that I have in your premise when you're talking about,
How do you make it louder?
Hold on 1 second.
I don't have an iPad, so I don't know how to do it. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
the question that was raised about how life gets in the way and changing purpose and people that are, quote, obsessed. But if you look at history and even, current history, you look at people that, for example, starting from a Tom Brady in football, you don't get to that level of performance, or as they call it, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, if you're not thinking about that purpose all the time. If you look at Simone Biles, she was a GOAT, thinking of that whole purpose the whole time. And even though people said, you need to do another thing, she wouldn't succumb to that. If you look at medicine, a neurosurgeon requires 11 years after college to get to that position. So if they're dissuaded, like the guy that took the path to become the barber as opposed to the veterinarian, you wouldn't have those positions. So the question of, even if you look back to Moses and the story of his life, going from, being the king of Egypt and in that royalty to leading the people of Israel, there was a change in his life. But what if he took the easy way and didn't take that path? The whole history would have been changed. So the question is when there's, quote, a divine spark leading you to a direction, and you do whatever is necessary to get to that goal and not be diverted, is that good or bad?
So I think that's an excellent question. And I've seen this movie. This is now the third time I've seen this movie. And it's a question that I think about not only when I see this movie, but when I read about historical characters, historical real people, stories, etc., like that. But it's a very complicated thing. When I watch this movie, I take away from it that what Joe was missing was that he was missing relationships in his life. When you watch the montage the montage of his life goes back to his moments when he's interacting with people. And Tom Brady, I have to confess, I don't know a tremendous amount about famous athletes, but if I remember correctly, he's married, right? He's not single, right? He's married, and I think he has even children. Yeah, so he's married, he has children. It's not a singular obsession that he cut everything out. And right, Joe obviously liked this Lisa woman, right? And he wouldn't pursue her because he was so obsessed with his music. And even 22 knew that he was making a mistake, but he wouldn't fix it. And so I think that this movie tells us that we are supposed to be in relationship with people, and it's dangerous if we are so obsessed that we are only focused on one moment and one thing. And I mean, I'm gonna make somebody mad, but I mean, we saw that this summer with Simone Biles, right? Her singular purpose, she was told from the time she was this little, was to be the greatest of all time. You're the greatest of all time. You need to continue to be the greatest of all time. And that can't be, she already was the greatest of all time. Once you're already the greatest of all time, what's your continued purpose at age 20 something, right? And so she's going to have to relearn what her actual purpose is. And her spark may have been gymnastics, but is that really her purpose? And that's what's interesting in the movie, is there is a big differentiation between a spark and a purpose. And they're very clear about that. I see that Mark has his hand up.
Go ahead, Mark.
Hi. Well, first I wanted to make a statement related to that, and I wanted to change the framework a little bit. First off,
Alexa, turn on the television sound.
What?
hello.
Okay,
Right.
go ahead, Mark.
Not everyone gets to follow their dream, but I think inherent in a lot of parents is, in having children, we try and create the opportunities so that they can fulfill their dreams. And so we see and try and nurture that spark that we weren't able to do ourselves. Yeah. So there are pathways, if we believe in our soul existing in other
Mhm.
planes.
Mhm.
Yeah. But what I wanted to frame the question was, what is the influence between the soul, the body, and the mind? Because we're given this gift of a soul and it lives in the body. How much of it do we believe is predestined? How much is the body taking complete control, or the mind taking complete control over what the soul is responsible for?
I think that's an excellent question. And that gets back to what I said at the beginning of this, that just because I brought the movie doesn't mean I believe in all the theological implications of the movie. Because one of the things that I find very troubling in the movie, and it troubles me each time I watch it, is this concept that up there in the U seminar, where one of the Jerrys is saying, you 5 are going to be self-obsessed, and you 6 are going to be, narcissistic, blah, blah, blahs, and you're going to be a psychopath. I mean, like, so so it's like saying that those souls are predestined to be X, Y, and Z way. And that is, frankly, it's counter to our Jewish tradition. Our Jewish tradition tells us that each of us is in control of our own behaviors. And we can, not only are we in control, that if we don't like a quality within ourselves, we have the capacity to change. And that's the whole purpose of teshuvah. And so I think that that's a very important question, Mark. The one thing that I do like about the concept here is that there is a space for us before we're born, then we are born and live, and then there's the great beyond, right? Because we always talk about our souls are eternal, right? We talk about our eternal souls. So we all know that we live and then our souls go on to something. But what on earth are we doing before we're born? And at least this is an attempt, this is, you know, to say, well, your personality is kind of getting put in place before you're born. Go ahead, Sapir. And then we have to head over because I was going to start by 11, I thought, but probably we're going to be a few minutes late now. Go ahead, Sapir.
I don't think that they're saying that they'll be self-absorbed or whatever forever. And first of all, those are characteristics that I think everybody has a certain amount of, some to a greater degree or less, you know, it's a curve. And there's nothing that it says in the movie that if they decide to change, that they can't change. I mean, they may start out very self-absorbed or self-obsessed or curious or whatever, but that doesn't mean that they. I'm just trying to like square it with your theology.
Okay. So Pierre said not to worry, they never say explicitly in the movie that those people who were labeled self-absorbed or aloof or whatever, that they can't change. And that may very well be, maybe that's the whole purpose of the movie, is to tell us that just because 22 was the way she was for 400 years on what, you know, in the before, in the great before, she eventually changed. And if she could change, then anybody can change. Maybe that's the purpose of the movie, to tell us that any of us can change if we really want to. Anybody else have anything else to say? Okay, so, oh, yes, Adam.
I was just gonna say, if you're wrapping up, just remind everybody that we got the live stream. up there.
Yes,
And then
okay.
Switch over.
Okay, so I just wanted to thank Estelle Elfern for sponsoring tonight's.
Thank you, Estelle.
Thank you, Estelle, for
Thank you,
sponsoring
Estelle.
tonight. And we are all grateful that you did that. We are going to all now have to get off of Zoom and move rooms, because we're going to be doing the Selichot service from the sanctuary, from the live stream. We will see you all there, but I won't be able to hear you. So see you later. See you soon. Okay, bye-bye. People
Thank
on
you
Zoom,
very
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.